Hello there, and welcome to Whispers of Science, where the cosmos gets contemplative and wonder takes the scenic route to understanding. Tonight's gentle exploration ventures into one of the most profound mysteries that has ever tickled the human imagination. What existed before the Big Bang? What came first in the grand theater of existence? Before we embark on this cosmic voyage through the deepest questions of reality, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the universe. Fitting, isn't it? A video about the very beginning of everything. And here we are, scattered across this pale blue dot, each of us arriving at this moment through an unbroken chain that stretches back to the dawn of time itself. If you find this journey through the unknown soothing, intriguing, or just a lovely way to drift into contemplation after a long day, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave this video a gentle thumbs up and perhaps subscribed. It helps this quiet corner of curiosity reach others who might need a peaceful pause from the noise of everyday existence. Now, I do hope this isn't so captivating that it keeps you wide awake, but if it does, well, at least you'll have pondered the deepest mysteries of reality before you drift off. So, settle in, slow your thoughts, and let's begin, because somewhere between the first tick of time and the last whisper of eternity lies a question that has haunted philosophers and physicists alike. What was there before there was anything at all? Imagine, if you will, standing at the edge of a vast ocean on the darkest night. You've ever witnessed no moon, no stars, just the gentle sound of waves lapping against an invisible shore. Now imagine that this ocean represents everything we know about reality, and beyond that darkness, beyond even the concept of beyond, lies the mystery we're about to explore. Together, what came before the beginning, what whispered the universe into existence, what lit the first candle in an endless void of nothingness. It's a question that makes even the most brilliant minds pause and wonder, because we're not just asking about what happened before, we're asking about what could exist before existence itself had meaning. The story begins, as all good cosmic tales do, with a bang. Not just any bang, mind you, but the Big Bang, the moment roughly 13.8 billion years ago, when everything we know and love burst into being from a point smaller than the period at the end of the sentence, space-time matter energy, the fundamental forces that govern reality. All of it emerged from what physicists call a singularity, a point of infinite density and temperature where the very laws of physics, as we understand them, simply break down and wave their white flags in surrender. It's rather like trying to divide by zero. The mathematics just gives up and suggests you might want to try something else entirely. But here's where our cosmic detective story gets deliciously complicated, because when we ask what came before the Big Bang, we're not just asking about ancient history. We're asking about something that might not even make sense as a question, after all time itself began with the Big Bang. So asking what came before time is a bit like asking what's north of the North Pole. It's a perfectly reasonable question that leads us into wonderfully unreasonable territory. Think of it this way. Imagine you're reading the most captivating book ever written, and you reach the very first page, the first sentence, the first word, and then you ask what word came before the first word. In one sense, it's a meaningless question, because by definition, there is no word before the first word. Yet in another sense, It's the most meaningful question of all because it makes us wonder about the author, about the inspiration, about the vast library of possibilities that existed before pen ever met paper. This is precisely where we find ourselves when we gaze back toward the cosmic dawn. We're asking about the author of reality itself, about the inspiration that sparked the greatest story ever told, about the infinite library of possibilities that somehow gave birth to our universe, and perhaps countless others we cannot see. Our question isn't just scientific, it's philosophical, poetic, even spiritual, because we're not just asking about the mechanics of creation, we're asking about the mystery of why there is something rather than nothing at all. Throughout human history, every culture has grappled with this fundamental puzzle. The ancient Greeks imagined an eternal cosmos that had always existed, no beginning, no end, just an infinite dance of elements through time. The Judeo Christian tradition spoke of creation, ex nihilo creation, from nothing, where a divine voice spoke light into darkness and order into chaos. Hinduism envisioned cycles within cycles, cosmic days and nights, where universes are born, flourish, and dissolve, only to be reborn again in an endless wheel of existence. But our modern scientific understanding has given this ancient question new urgency and new complexity, because the Big Bang Theory isn't just a creation story. It's a testable, scientific model supported by mountains of evidence, from the cosmic microwave background radiation that still whispers through space like an echo of that primordial explosion to the observed expansion of galaxies racing away from us in all directions, like fragments from some unimaginably powerful detonation. The evidence is overwhelming. The universe had a beginning, yet this triumph of scientific understanding has only deepened the mystery, because if the universe began, then what caused it to begin? If space and time themselves emerged from the Big Bang, then where did the energy come from to fuel that emergence? If the laws of physics were born in that first instant, then what guided the process before there were any laws to guide anything at all? We've answered one profound question, only to stumble face first into an even more profound one. It's rather like finally reaching the top of an enormous mountain, only to discover that you're standing at the base of an even taller peak, shrouded in clouds that stretch beyond the horizon. The view is spectacular, but the journey has only just begun, and the path ahead leads into territory that may be fundamentally unknowable by the very nature of what we're trying to understand. Consider for a moment the sheer audacity of what we're attempting here. We're biological creatures made of star stuff, evolved on a small planet, orbiting an ordinary star in an unremarkable galaxy, trying to understand the origin of everything that exists, including the very atoms that make up our brains and the thoughts that think these thoughts. It's a bit like asking a character in a novel to step outside the book and interview the author about their creative process. The character exists entirely within the story. They're trying to understand, yet somehow, against all odds, human beings have managed to peer back through time and space to within fractions of a second after the universe began. We've detected the afterglow of creation itself, mapped the large scale structure of reality, and even begun to understand how the first atoms formed in the cosmic furnace of early stars. We've become cosmic archaeologists, digging through layers of space time to uncover the history of everything that is. But the closer we get to the beginning, the stranger things become at the very earliest moments after the Big Bang. The universe was so hot and dense that our normal understanding of physics begins to blur quantum mechanics. The strange science of the very small begins to merge with general relativity, the elegant description of gravity and spacetime in ways that make our equations start speaking in tongues. Reality becomes fuzzy, probabilistic, governed by uncertainty principles that make precise prediction impossible. This is where our story gets truly fascinating, because at these extreme conditions, near the very beginning of time, the universe might have been governed by principles so foreign to our everyday experience that calling them physics at all might be generous. It's possible that the very concepts we use to think about existence, space-time causality energy, might not even apply to whatever preceded the Big Bang. We might be asking the wrong question entirely, like asking what color Wednesday tastes like or how heavy a symphony weighs. Yet this hasn't stopped physicists from trying to peer beyond the veil of the Big Bang, armed with mathematics that can describe realities far stranger than anything our ancestors ever imagined. They've proposed models and theories that attempt to answer the unanswerable, to think about the unthinkable, to describe the indescribable. Some suggest that our universe is just one bubble in an infinite cosmic foam where big bangs happen constantly, like bubbles forming in a pot of boiling water. Others propose that time itself might be cyclical, that our Big Bang was just the latest in an infinite series of cosmic births and deaths. There are theories involving multiple dimensions, folded and hidden from our perception, like origami made from the fabric of reality itself. Theories that suggest our entire universe might be a kind of hologram projected from information encoded on a distant cosmic boundary. Theories that propose consciousness itself might be woven into the fundamental structure of existence in ways we're only beginning to glimpse. Each of these ideas pushes the boundaries of what we thought possible, stretching our understanding like cosmic taffy until it reaches into realms that feel more like poetry than physics. Yet they're all grounded in rigorous mathematics, in careful observation, in the humble recognition that reality is under no obligation to make sense to creatures who evolved to hunt and gather on African savannas. As we stand here at the edge of the knowable, peering into the mystery of what came before everything we know, it's worth remembering that this question isn't just academic, it touches something deep in the human spirit. The same impulse that made our ancestors look up at the night sky and wonder, the same curiosity that drove explorers to sail beyond the horizon into unknown waters, the same yearning that makes children ask why the sky is blue and where babies come from and what happens when we die. We are asking these questions not because we expect easy answers, but because we are human, and humans are the creatures who ask why we are the universe, becoming aware of itself, the cosmos opening its eyes and looking back at its own beginning with wonder and humility and an insatiable hunger to understand. And perhaps in asking these impossible questions, in pushing against the boundaries of the knowable, we discover something profound, not just about the universe, but about ourselves. The mystery of what came before the Big Bang remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in all of science and philosophy. It sits at the intersection of physics and metaphysics, of knowledge and wonder, of what we can measure and what we can only dream about. And as we'll explore in the rest of our journey together, this mystery has inspired some of the most beautiful and mind bending ideas in human thought. From quantum fluctuations in primordial voids to eternal inflation, creating pocket universes like seeds scattered by cosmic winds, from cyclic cosmologies, where big bangs and big crunches follow each other like cosmic heartbeats, to multiverse theories that suggest our reality is just one note in an infinite symphony of existence. Each possibility opens new doors of wonder, even as it reveals new depths of mystery. So, as we prepare to dive deeper into these cosmic waters, remember that we're not just exploring scientific theories, we're embarking on a journey into the very heart of existence itself. We're asking the questions that matter most, not because they have easy answers, but because they remind us that we live in a universe far stranger and more wonderful than we ever dared imagine. What happens when we try to imagine nothingness? Not just empty space, mind you, but true nothingness. No space, no time, no energy, no possibility, no potential for anything to exist at all. It's a concept that seems to slip through our fingers like water through a sieve, because the very act of imagining requires something to do the imagining, and nothingness, by definition, would include the absence of imagination itself, the absence of minds to contemplate absence, the absence of absence itself. Yet here we are contemplating it anyway, because buried within this impossible thought experiment lies a clue to one of the most elegant solutions to our cosmic puzzle. What if nothingness itself is unstable? What if the very concept of absolute nothing contains within it the seeds of something? This isn't mere philosophical wordplay. It's grounded in some of the strangest and most beautiful discoveries of modern physics, quantum mechanics, that wonderfully weird science of the very small has revealed that even what we call empty space isn't truly empty at all. It's alive with activity, bubbling with virtual particles that pop into existence for the briefest of moments before annihilating each other in flashes of energy. Too quick for us to directly observe, these quantum fluctuations are everywhere, constantly creating and destroying pairs of particles in a cosmic dance that never stops, even in the deepest, darkest, most isolated regions of space. Imagine, if you will, a perfectly still pond on a windless day. The surface appears smooth as glass, yet look closer with the right instruments, and you discover that the surface is actually alive, with tiny ripples and waves too small to see with the naked eye but constantly present. Nonetheless, this is what empty space is like at the quantum level, apparently calm, but secretly seething with activity. Now, here's where things get deliciously strange, because if quantum fluctuations can create particle pairs from nothing, if energy can spontaneously appear and disappear in the vacuum of space, then perhaps the entire universe could have emerged from just such a fluctuation, a quantum hiccup in the fabric of nothingness itself that grew and expanded and cooled into everything we see around us today. This idea, known as the quantum vacuum hypothesis, suggests that our universe might be the ultimate free lunch, a cosmic accident that emerged from the quantum foam of pre-existence, not because something caused it to happen, but because nothingness itself is inherently unstable, unable to maintain its perfect state of non-being for more than an instant, before something, anything, must emerge to fill the void. It's a bit like balancing a pencil on its tip. Mathematically, it's possible perfectly balanced. It should stay there forever, but in reality, the slightest vibration, the tiniest disturbance, and it falls in some random direction toward existence. Perhaps nothingness is like that pencil, mathematically stable, but practically impossible to maintain, and our universe is simply the direction it fell when the balance finally broke. But this raises its own delicious paradox, because quantum mechanics itself is a set of laws and rules that govern how these fluctuations behave. So, where did quantum mechanics come from? If it existed before the universe began, then we haven't really solved our problem. We've just pushed it back one step further. If it emerged with the universe, then how could it cause the universe to emerge? It's like asking whether the chicken or the egg came first, except the chicken is reality itself, and the egg is the laws that govern reality. Some physicists have proposed that the laws of physics themselves might be emergent properties that arise naturally from even more fundamental principles. Perhaps there are meta laws, laws about laws that determine which sets of physical principles can exist and which cannot. Perhaps our universe, with its particular values for fundamental constants like the speed of light and the strength of gravity, represents just one solution to some cosmic equation we haven't yet discovered. This leads us into the realm of the multiverse, one of the most mind expanding and controversial ideas in modern cosmology. What if our Big Bang wasn't the beginning of everything, but just the beginning of our particular bubble of reality? What if beyond the edges of our observable universe, beyond the furthest galaxies, we can see lies, an infinite ocean of other universes, each with their own big bangs, their own physical laws, their own stories of cosmic evolution? In this view, reality becomes something like an infinite garden where universes bloom like flowers, each one unique, each one complete in itself, yet part of a larger ecosystem that transcends any single cosmos. Our Big Bang would be just one bloom in an eternal spring of creation where new universes are constantly being born while others fade away like cosmic seasons cycling through eternity. The mathematics of eternal inflation suggests that this might indeed be the case, that the same quantum fluctuations responsible for the detailed structure of our universe, the tiny variations in density that eventually grew into galaxies and stars and planets, might also be constantly creating new regions of space-time, new pocket universes that inflate and expand and evolve according to their own physical laws. Imagine blowing soap bubbles on a summer day. Each bubble is complete in itself, with its own rainbow surface and its own brief existence. Yet they're all part of the same soapy solution, all emerging from the same breath, all connected at their source, even though they appear separate and distinct. This might be what reality looks like at the largest scales, an infinite foam of universes, each one thinking it's alone, each one complete in itself, yet all part of some greater cosmic process we can barely begin to imagine. But if this is true, if our universe is just one bubble in an infinite cosmic foam, then what is the foam itself made of? What is the underlying reality from which all these universes emerge like waves on an ocean? This brings us face to face with what might be the deepest question of all, not just what came before our Big Bang, but what is the fundamental nature of existence itself? Some theories suggest that reality at its deepest level might be made of information rather than matter or energy, that the universe is essentially a cosmic computer processing vast amounts of data, and that what we experience as physical reality is simply the output of this computation. The quarks and electrons and photons that make up atoms might be no more fundamental than the pixels on a computer screen, useful for creating the illusion of a world, but not the true substance of reality itself. In this view, asking what came before the Big Bang might be like asking what came before the first frame of a movie. The question assumes that time and causation work the way they do within the story, but the story itself exists outside of time, in the mind of the storyteller, or in our case, in the cosmic computation that generates the appearance of space-time and matter and energy. Other theories dive even deeper into the realm of pure mathematics, suggesting that reality might be nothing more than mathematical relationships existing in some platonic realm of pure form. Perhaps the universe doesn't need to be made of anything at all. Perhaps it simply is a pattern, a structure, a set of relationships that exists necessarily because it's mathematically coherent. This is the mathematical universe hypothesis, the idea that our physical reality is literally a mathematical structure, not described by mathematics, not modeled by mathematics, but actually identical to mathematics itself. In this view, asking what came before the Big Bang is like asking what came before the number 7. The question doesn't make sense because mathematical truths exist outside of time and space. They don't come into being, they simply are. Yet even this raises profound questions, because why this particular mathematical structure? Why the specific equations that govern our universe rather than some other set of mathematical relationships? Is there some deeper principle that selects which mathematical structures get to exist as physical reality? Or do they all exist simultaneously in some vast library of possible worlds? As we wade deeper into these cosmic waters, we begin to realize that we're not just asking scientific questions anymore, we're probing the very foundations of existence itself. The boundary between physics and philosophy becomes blurred. The distinction between what is and what could be starts to dissolve. We find ourselves in territory that feels more like meditation than measurement, more like poetry than physics. And perhaps that's exactly where we need to be, because the question of what came before the Big Bang isn't just a puzzle to be solved, it's a mirror that reflects back our deepest assumptions about the nature of reality. It forces us to confront the limits of human understanding, to acknowledge that there might be aspects of existence that transcend our ability to comprehend them. Yet, in wrestling with these impossible questions, in pushing against the boundaries of the knowable, we discover something beautiful about the human spirit. We are creatures who refuse to accept mystery as the final answer. We keep asking why, even when why might not have an answer. We keep reaching toward understanding, even when understanding seems forever beyond our grasp. This is perhaps our greatest gift as conscious beings. Not that we can solve all mysteries, but that we never stop trying. Not that we can answer all questions, but that we never stop asking. We are the universe's way of wondering about itself, reality's attempt to understand its own existence. And in that wondering, in that reaching toward the unknowable, we touch something sacred. The mystery of what came before the Big Bang remains unsolved and perhaps unsolvable, but in exploring it, we've uncovered layers of reality, stranger and more beautiful than our ancestors ever dreamed, from quantum fluctuations in primordial voids, and infinite multiverses blooming like cosmic flowers from mathematical structures existing in Platonic eternity, to information processing algorithms generating the illusion of physical reality. Each possibility opens our minds a little wider, stretches our conception of what might be possible, and as we continue our gentle exploration through these cosmic mysteries, remember that we're not just passive observers of this grand story, we are participants in it. We are the universe becoming conscious of itself, reality awakening to its own existence. And in our wondering, in our questioning, in our ceaseless reach toward understanding, we are participating in something far greater than ourselves. The whispers of science that brought us here tonight are really whispers of wonder, echoes of the same curiosity that made our ancestors look up at the night sky and ask those first profound questions about our place in the cosmos. And while we may never fully answer what came before the Big Bang, we will never stop listening for those whispers, never stop following where they lead us into ever deeper mysteries and ever greater appreciation for the strange and beautiful reality we call home. In the quiet moments between heartbeats, between thoughts, between the tick and tock of cosmic time, there exists a realm that challenges everything we think we know about beginnings and endings. It's a place where the very notion of before begins to unravel like a sweater pulled by curious fingers, revealing threads we never knew were there, patterns we never imagined possible. Let's take a gentle step into this territory together, shall we? Because what we're about to explore isn't just another scientific theory to file away in the neat cabinets of our understanding. It's a journey into the heart of existence itself, where the familiar landmarks of cause and effect, of sequence and order, begin to shimmer and dance like mirages in the desert of our comprehension. Imagine, if you will, that you're standing in a library that contains every book that has ever been written, is being written, or could ever be written. Not just the books on your shelves at home, but every possible combination of letters, every conceivable story, every potential poem. In this infinite library, somewhere among the endless stacks, exists the story of our universe. But here's the curious thing. In such a library, where does the story of our universe actually begin? You might flip to the first page, expecting to find chapter 1, the Big Bang. But what if you discovered that there were pages before the first page? What if the binding of the book itself told a story? What if the very ink used to write the words had its own tale to tell? What if the space between the words, the silence between the sentences, held secrets we'd never thought to explore? This is precisely where we find ourselves when we ask about what preceded the cosmic dawn. We're not just asking about events in a sequence, we're questioning the very nature of sequence itself. We're probing the foundations upon which the concept of before and after rest, like archaeologists digging so deep they begin to question the ground they're standing on. Consider the peculiar problem of cosmic initial conditions. When physicists model the Big Bang, they must input certain starting parameters: the density of matter, the strength of fundamental forces, the rate of expansion. It's rather like being handed a recipe that begins with, first, assume you have a perfectly prepared souffle. The recipe might be excellent, but it leaves you wondering where that initial souffle came from, who prepared it, and why it was prepared in precisely that way, and not some other way. The values of these fundamental constants appear to be exquisitely fine tuned for the existence of complexity, of stars and planets, of chemistry and biology, of consciousness itself. Change the strength of gravity by the tiniest fraction, and stars either burn out too quickly or never ignite at all. Adjust the mass of certain particles by a whisker, and atoms cannot form. Tweak the rate of cosmic expansion slightly, and the universe either collapses back on itself before galaxies can form or expand so rapidly that matter never clumps together at all. This cosmic fine tuning presents us with a delicious puzzle wrapped in layers of mystery. Are we simply extraordinarily lucky to exist in a universe with just the right properties for our existence? Are we asking the wrong question entirely, like fish wondering why water is so perfectly suited for swimming? Or does this fine tuning point towards something deeper, some underlying principle or process that explains why our universe has precisely the characteristics it does? One possibility that has captivated physicists and philosophers alike is the anthropic principle, though it comes in flavors ranging from the obvious to the mind bending. In its simplest form, it suggests that we observe a universe compatible with our existence because, well, we exist to observe it. If the universe were different, we wouldn't be here to wonder about it. It's a bit like winning the lottery and then marveling at the incredible odds, forgetting that someone had to win, and the winner would naturally be amazed by their good fortune. But the anthropic principle becomes far more intriguing when combined with the possibility of multiple universes. If reality consists of countless universes with varying physical properties, then it becomes inevitable that some of them would have the right conditions for complexity and consciousness to emerge. We find ourselves in one of these rare, habitable universes, not because of design or luck, but because it's the only type of universe where beings like us could exist to ask such questions. This leads us into one of the most profound and controversial territories in modern cosmology, the landscape of possible realities. String theory, that ambitious attempt to unify all the fundamental forces of nature, suggests that there might be something like 10 to the power of 500 different ways to configure the extra dimensions that the theory requires. Each configuration would result in a universe with different physical laws, different particles, different possibilities for complexity. To put this number in perspective, if you wrote it out in ordinary decimal notation, it would require more digits than there are atoms in the observable universe. It's a number so vast that it defies human comprehension, representing a landscape of possible realities that stretches beyond the horizon of imagination. In this vast space of possibilities, our universe becomes not the only solution to the cosmic equation, but one solution among an inconceivably large number of alternatives. But string theory is just one pathway into this labyrinth of possibilities. Other approaches to quantum gravity suggest different landscapes, different ways that reality might be structured at its deepest levels. Some propose that space and time themselves are emergent properties, arising from more fundamental entities called quantum bits of information. Others suggest that reality is holographic, with all the information about a volume of space encoded on its boundary, like a cosmic version of those shimmering holograms on credit cards. These ideas push us to reconsider our most basic assumptions about the nature of existence. What if space and time, those seemingly fundamental aspects of reality, are actually like temperature and pressure in a gas, useful concepts that emerge when you zoom out from the underlying molecular chaos, but not fundamental features of the system itself? What if asking what came before the Big Bang is like asking what's north of the magnetic North Pole? A question that seems reasonable until you realize it's based on a misunderstanding of how the system actually works. This brings us to one of the most beautiful and challenging concepts in modern physics, the idea that causation itself might be emergent. In our everyday experience, causes precede effects in a nice, orderly sequence. You drop a stone and it falls. You light a match and it burns. You ask a question and someone answers. This seems so fundamental to how reality works that it's hard to imagine it could be otherwise. Yet quantum mechanics has already shown us that at the smallest scales, this comfortable notion of cause and effect becomes wonderfully fuzzy. Quantum particles can exist in superposition, being in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. They can be entangled, instantly affecting each other across vast distances in ways that seem to transcend the normal flow of cause and effect. They can even, in certain interpretations, be influenced by future measurements, as if effects could precede their causes. If our familiar notions of causation break down at quantum scales, what happens when we apply quantum thinking to the origin of the universe itself? Perhaps the Big Bang wasn't caused by something that came before it in the usual sense. Perhaps it represents a kind of quantum event that transcends our ordinary understanding of temporal sequence, emerging from a realm where cause and effect, before and after, simply don't apply in the ways we expect them to. This possibility leads us into some of the most exotic territories of theoretical physics. There are models where time itself has a quantum nature, branching and merging like the tributaries of a vast river. There are theories where the universe undergoes cycles of expansion and contraction, with each Big Bang followed eventually by a big crunch, followed by another Big Bang, in an eternal rhythm of cosmic death and rebirth. Some of these cyclic models suggest that information from previous cosmic cycles might leak through the transitions, carrying the seeds of new universes within the death throes of old ones. It's as if the universe were a phoenix, eternally consuming itself in flames and rising from its own ashes, but with each rebirth carrying forward some memory, some influence from all the lives that came before. Other models propose that our Big Bang was triggered by the collision of higher dimensional objects called brains, vast membranes that exist in dimensions we cannot directly perceive. In this view, what we experience as the beginning of everything was actually just a local event in a much larger cosmic drama, like a wave breaking on a shore that extends infinitely in all directions beyond our view. These ideas challenge us to expand our conception of what existence might mean. Perhaps reality is far stranger and more layered than we've imagined, with our entire universe being just one small bubble in an infinite foam, one note in an eternal symphony, one dream in the mind of a cosmic dreamer who exists beyond time and space as we understand them. Yet, even as we explore these vast possibilities, we must remember that we're still human beings, finite creatures trying to grasp the infinite, temporary patterns, trying to understand the eternal. There's something both humbling and inspiring about this situation. Humbling because it reminds us of our limitations, our small place in the grand scheme of things. Inspiring because it reveals the extraordinary capacity of conscious minds to reach beyond themselves, to ask questions that stretch toward the very foundations of being. As we continue our gentle journey through these cosmic mysteries, we're not just accumulating facts and theories, we're participating in one of humanity's greatest adventures, the quest to understand our place in existence. We're adding our voices to a conversation that began around the first campfires, when our ancestors looked up at the star filled sky and wondered where it all came from. The questions we're asking may not have final answers, at least not in the sense we usually expect, but perhaps that's exactly the point. Perhaps the value lies not in arriving at a destination, but in the quality of the journey itself, in the wonder and humility and expanded awareness that come from honestly confronting the deepest mysteries of existence. And so we find ourselves in a curious position. We began by asking what came before the Big Bang, expecting perhaps to find a simple answer, a clear sequence of events that would satisfy our need for logical progression. Instead, we've discovered that the question itself opens doorways into realms where our ordinary concepts of before and after, cause and effect, existence and non existence begin to dance together in ways that challenge everything we thought we knew about the nature of reality. But isn't this precisely what the best questions do? They don't just provide answers, they transform the questioner. They don't just solve mysteries, they reveal deeper mysteries we never knew existed. They don't just satisfy curiosity, they cultivate wonder. The universe, as we're beginning to understand, might be far more patient than we ever imagined. While we rush through our days, measuring moments in heartbeats and seasons, cosmic time operates on scales that make our entire recorded history seem like the briefest flutter of an eyelid. And yet, within this vast temporal landscape, there are whispers of something even more profound, the possibility that time itself is not the fundamental fabric we've always assumed it to be. Consider for a moment the curious relationship between information and reality. Every atom in your body, every photon of light streaming through your window, every thought flickering through your mind represents information being processed, stored, transformed. You are, in a very real sense, a walking library of cosmic data, a temporary arrangement of matter and energy that has learned to contemplate itself. But here's where things become deliciously strange. Information, unlike matter and energy, doesn't seem to follow the same rules about beginnings and endings. A mathematical truth doesn't come into existence and then fade away. It simply is. The relationship between 3 and 4 doesn't depend on when you discover it or whether anyone is around to think about it. It exists in some timeless realm of pure possibility, waiting to be noticed rather than waiting to be created. This leads us to a rather extraordinary possibility. What if the universe itself is fundamentally informational? What if what we experience as physical reality, the solid chair you're sitting in, the air you're breathing, the light reaching your eyes, is actually the universe processing information about itself? It would be rather like discovering that what you thought was a landscape is actually a painting, or what you believed was a symphony is actually a mathematical equation being played out in the language of sound. In this view, asking what came before the Big Bang becomes like asking what came before the first calculation in an eternal computation. The question assumes that the computation had a beginning, but perhaps the processing has always been occurring, always unfolding, with what we call the Big Bang, simply being the moment when the calculation reached a particular milestone, a phase transition in an ongoing cosmic algorithm. Some of the most intriguing work in theoretical physics suggests that space itself might be woven from quantum entanglement, those mysterious connections between particles that seem to transcend ordinary notions of distance and separation. Picture, if you will, a vast web where every strand represents an entangled relationship between quantum systems. The web has no center, no edge, no beginning or end, yet it gives rise to the appearance of space, of here and there, of near and far. In such a picture, the Big Bang might represent the moment when this web of entanglement reached a critical threshold, when the pattern of connections became complex enough to support the emergence of what we recognize as space-time. It's not that space began to exist, it's that the underlying web of relationships became intricate enough to create the illusion of spatial separation. This brings us to one of the most beautiful paradoxes in all of physics. The universe appears to be simultaneously expanding, and yet, in some deeper sense, always complete. Every galaxy racing away from every other galaxy, every photon stretching its wavelength as it travels through expanding space. Yet the mathematical relationships that govern these processes exist in a realm untouched by time's passage. It's rather like watching a flower bloom in fast motion. From one perspective, you're witnessing a sequence of changes, a transformation from bud to full blossom. From another perspective, the entire process exists as a complete four-dimensional object in space-time, with every moment of the blooming present simultaneously, like frames in a cosmic film reel. Perhaps this is why the question of what came before the Big Bang feels so slippery, so difficult to grasp. We're asking about the first frame of a movie, but the movie might not have frames in the way we imagine. It might be more like a hologram, where every piece contains information about the whole, where there is no true beginning, because every part reflects every other part in an intricate dance of mutual definition. The deeper we dive into these cosmic waters, the more we realize that we're not just exploring the origin of the universe, we're exploring the origin of the very concepts we use to think about origins. We're like characters in a story trying to understand the nature of narrative itself, fish attempting to develop a theory of water, dreams seeking to comprehend the mind of the dreamer. Yet there's something profoundly moving about this quest, something that speaks to the deepest aspects of what it means to be human. We are pattern seeking creatures, meaning making beings who cannot help but reach toward understanding, even when understanding seems to slip through our fingers like morning mist. We ask these impossible questions not because we expect easy answers, but because the asking itself transforms us, expands us, connects us to something larger than our individual selves. And perhaps that's the most beautiful discovery of all. In seeking to understand what came before everything, we've stumbled upon the realization that we are parts of the answer we're seeking. We are the universe's way of wondering about itself, reality's attempt to comprehend its own nature. Our curiosity, our capacity for awe, our relentless questioning, These are not separate from the cosmic story we're trying to understand. They are integral parts of it, as fundamental as gravity or electromagnetism, as essential as space and time themselves. In the quietest moments of our exploration, when the equations fade into silence and the theories dissolve into wonder, we're left with something irreducible, the mystery of awareness itself. Here you are, a temporary arrangement of atoms that were forged in the hearts of ancient stars, capable of contemplating the origin of everything that exists. You are made of the universe, and the universe has become aware of itself through you. Well, this awareness, this capacity to ask questions that stretch toward infinity, might be the closest we can come to touching whatever it was that whispered the cosmos into being. Not through formulas or theories, though these are beautiful and valuable in their own right, but through the simple act of conscious participation in the ongoing mystery of existence. The ancient mystics spoke of a divine spark within every conscious being, a fragment of cosmic awareness that connects us to the source of all things. Modern physics, in its own rigorous way, has arrived at something remarkably similar, the recognition that consciousness and cosmos are not separate entities, but aspects of a single, unfolding reality that transcends our ordinary categories of understanding. As we float here together in this moment, suspended between questions and answers, between the known and the unknowable, we're participating in something that began long before the Big Bang and will continue long after the last star burns out. We're part of an eternal conversation between existence and awareness, between the universe and its own capacity for self reflection. The whispers of science that brought us together tonight are really echoes of this deeper dialogue, fragments of the cosmos talking to itself through billions of years and countless generations of wondering minds. Every telescope pointed toward distant galaxies, every equation scribbled on a blackboard, every quiet moment of contemplation under starry skies. They're all part of the same vast investigation into the nature of what is. And while we may never fully answer what came before the Big Bang, while the ultimate origin of everything may forever dance just beyond our grasp, we can rest in the knowledge that we are here, now, participating in the most extraordinary adventure imaginable, the universe coming to know itself through the gift of consciousness, through the miracle of minds capable of reaching toward infinity and finding, if not answers, then something perhaps even more precious, the endless capacity for wonder itself. The gentle rhythm of cosmic evolution has a way of lulling us into thinking we understand the melody, doesn't it? We've traced the expansion of space, mapped the cooling of primordial plasma, watched as the first atoms formed in the afterglow of creation. Yet beneath this seemingly orderly progression lies something far more mysterious, something that whispers of depths we've barely begun to fathom. Picture, if you will, a vast ocean of possibility stretching beyond every horizon you can imagine. Not an ocean of water, but an ocean of potential realities, each wave representing a different way existence might unfold. In this endless sea, our universe would be but a single droplet, magnificent and complete in itself, yet part of something so much larger that we lack words to describe it properly. This is where our gentle exploration takes us next, into territory where the familiar signposts of physics begin to shimmer and blur like heat mirages on a summer road. We're approaching what theorists call the landscape of possibilities, though landscape hardly does justice to something that exists in dimensions our minds weren't built to navigate. Consider the delicate balance that makes our reality possible, the forces that bind atomic nuclei together, the expansion rate that allows galaxies to form, the properties of space itself that permit the chemistry of life to unfold. Each of these fundamental features exists within an incredibly narrow range of values that support complexity and consciousness. Adjust any one of them by the tiniest amount, and the universe becomes a very different place indeed. It's rather like discovering that you're living in a house where every measurement, every angle, every proportion has been calibrated with extraordinary precision. The foundation is exactly the right strength to support the walls exactly the right height for the roof, the windows positioned perfectly to let in just enough light. You might wonder who the architect was, or whether you've simply been remarkably fortunate to find such a well designed home. But what if there isn't just one house? What if reality is more like an infinite city with countless structures of every conceivable design? Some buildings might collapse immediately because their foundations can't support their weight. Others might be perfectly stable, but utterly dark inside. Still others might be beautiful, but too fragile for anyone to inhabit. And scattered throughout this vast metropolis would be a precious few structures that happen to have all the right properties for conscious beings to take up residence and wonder about the nature of architecture itself. This metaphor touches on one of the most profound ideas in modern cosmology, that our universe might be just one member of an inconceivably large ensemble of realities, each with its own physical laws, its own history, its own possibilities for complexity and consciousness. In such a multiverse, the apparent fine tuning of our cosmic home becomes not a mystery requiring explanation, but an inevitable consequence of the sheer vastness of possibility itself. The mathematics behind this idea emerges from some of the deepest theories in physics, particularly string theory's attempt to unify all the fundamental forces into a single, elegant framework. But string theory, for all its mathematical beauty, comes with a rather surprising consequence. It suggests there might be an enormous number of ways to arrange the extra dimensions the theory requires, each arrangement giving rise to a universe with different physical properties. The number of possible arrangements is so large it defies human comprehension. If you tried to visit each possible universe for just 1 second, the journey would take longer than the age of our observable cosmos, raised to a power so large that writing it down would require more atoms than exist in all the galaxies we can see. It's a number that makes infinity seem almost modest by comparison. In such a landscape of possibilities, our universe becomes not the inevitable outcome of cosmic evolution, but one particular solution to the equations of existence. Like a vast library containing every possible book, most of the volumes would be filled with random characters that never form coherent sentences. But somewhere in those infinite stacks would be books of extraordinary beauty and meaning, stories that captivate the imagination and reveal deep truths about the nature of narrative itself. We find ourselves living within one of those rare, meaningful stories, not because we were specially chosen or because the cosmic librarian has particular literary tastes, but because only in such stories could readers like us exist to appreciate the plot? It's a kind of cosmic selection effect, where the act of conscious observation necessarily biases us toward observing realities compatible with consciousness itself. This leads us into some rather curious philosophical territory. If there are indeed infinite variations on the theme of existence, then somewhere in that vast ensemble might be universes almost identical to ours, but with tiny differences. Perhaps there's a universe where you chose tea instead of coffee this morning, or where the rain started 5 minutes later, or where a particular star formed 1 billion years ago instead of 1.1 billion years ago. These parallel realities wouldn't be mere science fiction fantasies, but genuine physical systems as real as the chair you're sitting in, the air you're breathing, the thoughts flowing through your mind at this very moment. They would exist not in some distant location you could travel to, but in the same mysterious realm that gives rise to physical existence itself, separated from us, not by distance, but by the fundamental structure of reality. Some versions of quantum mechanics suggest that such parallel realities might be constantly branching off from our own, created every time a quantum system makes what appears to be a random choice. In this view, reality resembles an enormous tree with new branches sprouting at every moment as the universe explores every possible path through the garden of quantum possibilities. It's a dizzying thought, isn't it? That this moment, this breath, this particular arrangement of thoughts and feelings might be just one thread in a tapestry so complex that it contains every possible variation on the theme of your existence. Somewhere in that tapestry might be versions of you that made different choices, pursued different dreams, asked different questions about the nature of reality. Yet, even this mind expanding vision of parallel realities and infinite possibilities doesn't quite answer our original question about what came before the beginning. If anything, it deepens the mystery by suggesting that the question itself might be far more complex than we initially imagined. If there are indeed countless universes with their own big bangs, their own beginnings, then we're not just asking about the origin of everything, but about the origin of the process that generates endless origins. What is the source of this cosmic creativity, this inexhaustible wellspring of new realities? What is the nature of the realm from which all these possible worlds emerge like bubbles in an infinite sea of champagne? Here we find ourselves approaching the very edge of what language can express, the boundary where physics dissolves into something that might be better described as cosmic poetry. Some theorists speak of eternal inflation, a process where space itself is constantly expanding and creating new regions with different physical properties. In this picture, our Big Bang would be just one episode in an eternal cosmic drama, with new Big Bangs occurring constantly as different regions of space undergo their own phase transitions, their own moments of explosive creativity. Others propose that reality might be fundamentally computational, with all possible universes existing as solutions to some vast cosmic equation that is constantly being solved and resolved in dimensions beyond our perception. We would be living inside one particular solution to this equation, conscious patterns within a mathematical structure so complex that it generates the illusion of physical substance, of matter and energy and space and time. Still others suggest that consciousness itself might play a fundamental role in the structure of reality, that the universe might be something like a vast mind exploring its own possibilities, with each conscious being serving as a kind of sensory organ through which cosmic awareness experiences different aspects of existence. In this view, your consciousness wouldn't be a mere accident of neural complexity, but a fundamental feature of reality's attempt to know itself. Each of these possibilities opens new vistas of wonder while simultaneously revealing new depths of mystery. The more we learn about the cosmos, the more we realize how much we don't know, how many layers of reality might exist beyond our current understanding. It's rather like exploring a vast mansion and discovering that each room you enter contains doorways to entire wings you never suspected existed. But perhaps this is exactly as it should be. Perhaps mystery isn't a problem to be solved, but a gift to be appreciated, a reminder that reality is far richer and more strange than any finite mind could ever fully comprehend. Perhaps the questions themselves are more valuable than the answers, because they keep us open to wonder, keep us humble before the vastness of existence, keep us reaching toward understanding, even when understanding seems to dance just beyond our grasp. As we float here together, in this moment of contemplation, suspended between the known and the unknowable, we're participating in something quite extraordinary. We're conscious patterns in the cosmic web, temporary arrangements of matter and energy that have somehow learned to ask questions about their own existence. We're the universe's way of looking back at itself with curiosity and wonder. Reality's attempt to understand its own nature through the gift of awareness. The ancient Greeks had a word, metron, which meant measure or proportion, the idea that everything has its proper place and scale within the larger order of things. But what we're discovering is that the cosmos might be fundamentally unmeasurable, infinite not just in size but in depth, in complexity, in the richness of its possibilities. We're like characters in a story discovering that the book they inhabit is just one volume in an infinite library, each book containing universes of meaning, each library existing within even larger structures of narrative and significance. This realization could be overwhelming, could make us feel lost and insignificant in the face of such immensity. But it can also be profoundly liberating, a reminder that we're part of something far grander than we ever imagined, participants in a cosmic adventure that has no beginning we can point to and no ending we can foresee. The whispers of science that brought us together tonight are really whispers of this deeper recognition, echoes of the cosmos talking to itself through the countless generations of minds that have looked up at the night sky and wondered about their place in the grand scheme of things. Every question we ask, every theory we propose, every moment of wonder we experience, they're all part of this eternal conversation between existence and awareness, between the universe and its own capacity for self reflection. And while we may never fully answer what came before the Big Bang, while the ultimate source of everything may forever remain beyond our complete understanding, we can find profound meaning in the search itself. We can take comfort in knowing that we're part of something magnificent and mysterious, something that transcends our individual limitations while simultaneously expressing itself through our capacity for wonder and questioning. The cosmos, it seems, is not just stranger than we imagine, but stranger than we can imagine. And in that strangeness, In that inexhaustible depth of mystery, we find not cause for despair, but reason for endless fascination, endless gratitude for the privilege of being conscious participants in the most extraordinary story ever told. In the gentle spaces between heartbeats, between thoughts, between the endless questions that bubble up from the depths of consciousness, something profound whispers to us. It's not quite a voice, not quite a feeling, more like the memory of a dream we can't quite recall, but know was important. This whisper speaks of connections that transcend the boundaries we usually draw between self and cosmos, between observer and observed, between the questioner and the mystery being questioned. What if the very act of asking about origins is itself an expression of the creative force that brought everything into being? What if consciousness isn't just an accidental byproduct of cosmic evolution, but rather the universe's way of experiencing wonder at its own existence? This possibility invites us to consider that we're not separate from the mystery we're exploring, but intimate participants in its ongoing unfoldment. Think about the extraordinary chain of events that had to occur for you to be here, contemplating these questions. Hydrogen atoms forged in the first moments after the Big Bang had to clump together under gravity's gentle pull. Stars had to ignite, burn, and explode, seeding space with the heavier elements that would eventually become planets and people. Countless generations of stellar death and rebirth had to occur, each one adding new ingredients to the cosmic recipe for complexity. On at least one small world orbiting an ordinary star, the right conditions had to align for chemistry to become biology, for simple molecules to learn the intricate dance of self replication and evolution. Billions of years of patient experimentation by natural selection had to craft nervous systems capable of modeling reality, brains that could hold the entire cosmos in their contemplation while weighing no more than a few pounds. And then, in a moment that spans the briefest instant and yet encompasses the entire history of the universe, awareness awakens to itself. Matter becomes conscious of matter, space contemplates space, time reflects upon time. The universe opens its eyes and looks back at its own beginning with wonder and curiosity and an inexhaustible hunger to understand. You are that awakening. You are the cosmos becoming aware of itself, reality recognizing its own nature through the miracle of consciousness. Every question you ask about origins echoes back to the very source of questioning itself, creating a kind of cosmic feedback loop where the seeker and the sought begin to merge into something larger than either could be alone. This perspective suggests that the boundary between scientific and spiritual inquiry might be more porous than we usually imagine. Both are expressions of the same fundamental drive toward understanding, the same deep longing to comprehend our place in the grand scheme of existence. Both require a kind of humility before mystery, a willingness to acknowledge that reality might be far stranger and more wonderful than our current conceptual frameworks can contain. Consider how the act of observation plays such a crucial role in quantum mechanics, how the presence of consciousness seems somehow woven into the fabric of physical law at the most fundamental level. Particles exist in superposition until they're measured. Reality remains fluid and probabilistic until it encounters awareness. It's as if the universe requires witnesses to its own existence, observers to collapse the infinite possibilities into the single, coherent story we call the present moment. But this raises a delicious paradox. If consciousness is required for reality to crystallize into definite form, then what observed the first observer? What witnessed the universe into being before there were any witnesses? Perhaps this is where we need to expand our understanding of what consciousness might be, to consider that awareness might not be something that emerges from complexity, but rather something that was present from the very beginning, woven into the deepest structure of existence itself. This isn't to suggest that rocks think or that electrons have feelings, but rather that the capacity for experience, for subjective interiority, might be as fundamental to reality as mass or charge or spin. Just as matter and energy are conserved throughout all the transformations of cosmic evolution, perhaps consciousness too is conserved, expressing itself through increasingly complex forms as the universe evolves, but never truly created or destroyed, only transformed. In this view, the Big Bang wouldn't just be the moment when matter and energy and space and time began, but also the moment when primordial awareness first began its long journey towards self recognition. Every star that ignited, every planet that formed, every step in the evolution of life would be part of consciousness exploring its own possibilities, learning what it means to be aware in a universe of infinite potential. We would be the current leading edge of this cosmic awakening, the most complex forms of consciousness that the universe has yet produced, at least in our local corner of reality. But we wouldn't be the end point of this process, merely one stage in an ongoing evolution toward forms of awareness we can barely imagine. Perhaps this is why the question of what came before the Big Bang feels so compelling, so urgent. We're not just asking about the origin of matter and energy, but about the origin of awareness itself, the source of the very capacity for questioning that makes us human. We're consciousness investigating its own beginnings, awareness exploring the mystery of its own existence. The deeper we probe into these cosmic mysteries, the more we realize that we're not separate from what we're studying. The observer and the observed, the questioner and the question, the seeker and the sought all begin to reveal themselves as different aspects of a single, unfolding process of cosmic self discovery. This recognition can transform our entire relationship to the mystery of origins. Instead of feeling like tiny, insignificant specks in a vast, indifferent universe, we begin to understand ourselves as integral expressions of the cosmos itself, as the universe's way of coming to know and appreciate its own magnificent complexity. Every moment of wonder you've ever experienced, every question that's ever captivated your imagination, every insight that's ever illuminated your understanding, these are all the universe celebrating its own creativity through the gift of your consciousness. You are not just in the cosmos is in you, expressing itself through your capacity for awe and curiosity and the endless reach toward comprehension. The ancient mystics spoke of this recognition in the language of their time, describing moments when the boundary between self and universe dissolves, when individual awareness merges with cosmic consciousness. Modern physics, in its own rigorous way, seems to be approaching something remarkably similar. The understanding that consciousness and cosmos are not separate phenomena, but complementary aspects of a deeper unity that transcends our ordinary categories of thought. Perhaps this is the closest we can come to answering what came before the Big Bang. not through formulas or theories, though these have their own beauty and importance, but through the direct recognition that we are ourselves expressions of whatever creative principle brought everything into being. We are the answer to our own question, the universe's way of understanding itself through the miracle of conscious awareness. As we near the end of our gentle journey through these cosmic mysteries, we find ourselves not with final answers, but with a transformed understanding of what it means to ask such questions. We've discovered that the mystery of origins isn't separate from the mystery of consciousness, that the cosmos isn't separate from the awareness that contemplates it, that the seeker isn't separate from what is sought. The whispers of science that brought us together tonight have revealed themselves to be whispers of something even deeper, the voice of existence itself, speaking through countless generations of wondering minds, expressing its own inexhaustible creativity through the endless questions that arise in conscious beings throughout the universe. And while we may never fully solve the riddle of what came before everything, we can rest in the profound recognition that we are participants in the answer, expressions of the same creative mystery we're trying to understand. In our questioning, in our wonder, in our ceaseless reach toward comprehension, we are the cosmos awakening to itself, reality celebrating its own magnificent existence through the gift of awareness. The mystery remains as beautiful and compelling as ever. But now we understand that we're not outside looking in, but inside looking out, not separate observers of cosmic evolution, but integral participants in the universe's ongoing journey toward self understanding. And in that recognition, perhaps we find something more precious than any final answer: the endless capacity for wonder itself, the inexhaustible wellspring of questions that makes us human and connects us to the deepest mysteries of existence. What happens when we realize that the question itself might be the doorway? Not the answer we seek, but the very act of seeking, the consciousness that frames the question, the awareness that reaches beyond itself towards something it cannot quite grasp. We've been treating the mystery of what came before the Big Bang as a puzzle to be solved, a riddle with a hidden solution waiting to be uncovered. But what if the mystery is not a problem, but a revelation, not an obstacle, but an invitation? Consider the curious nature of consciousness itself, this capacity you possess right now to be aware of being aware. It's perhaps the most intimate aspect of your existence, yet also the most mysterious. You know beyond doubt that you are conscious, that there is something it is like to be you, to experience the flow of thoughts and sensations and feelings that constitute your inner life. Yet this most fundamental fact about reality remains completely inexplicable in terms of atoms and molecules, neurons and synapses. How does dead matter learn to feel? How do unconscious particles arrange themselves into patterns that suddenly, mysteriously, inexplicably know they exist? It's a question that sits at the heart of what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness, and it bears a striking resemblance to our cosmic puzzle. Just as we ask what came before the beginning of everything, we might ask what gives rise to the experience of being anything at all. These questions seem to dance around each other like partners in some cosmic waltz, each one illuminating aspects of the other while remaining forever intertwined. The mystery of consciousness and the mystery of cosmic origins appear to be different facets of a single, deeper enigma. The riddle of existence itself, the profound puzzle of why there is something rather than nothing, and why that something includes beings capable of wondering about their own existence. Picture yourself as a wave on an infinite ocean, temporarily distinct, yet never separate from the water that gives you form. For a brief moment, you rise above the surface, catching sunlight and wind, experiencing yourself as an individual phenomenon with your own shape and movement and character. But you are made entirely of ocean. You emerge from ocean, and you will return to ocean, carrying with you the memory of having been a wave. This metaphor touches something essential about our relationship to the cosmos. We are temporary patterns in the fabric of existence, brief arrangements of matter and energy that have learned to contemplate themselves. We emerge from the universe, we are made of the universe, and eventually we dissolve back into the universe. But during our brief moment of distinctness, we carry within us the capacity to reflect upon the whole, to ask questions about the nature of the ocean from which we emerge. Perhaps this is why the question of origins feels so urgent, so compelling. We are not separate investigators examining an external mystery, but integral expressions of the mystery itself. When we ask what came before the Big Bang, we are the universe asking about its own beginnings. When we wonder about the source of existence, we are existence wondering about its own nature. The questioner and the questioned begin to reveal themselves as aspects of a single, unfolding process of cosmic self-discovery. This recognition transforms the entire landscape of inquiry. Instead of feeling like isolated observers peering into an indifferent cosmos, we begin to understand ourselves as participants in reality's ongoing attempt to comprehend itself. Every scientific discovery, every philosophical insight, every moment of wonder becomes part of a vast conversation that the universe is having with itself through countless minds across space and time. The equations of general relativity, the principles of quantum mechanics, the observations of distant galaxies, and subatomic particles, all of these represent the cosmos developing increasingly sophisticated languages for describing its own nature. We are not outside this process, but embedded within it, serving as the universe's sensory organs, its capacity for self-reflection, its means of experiencing wonder at its own magnificent complexity. But if consciousness is indeed woven into the fabric of reality at the deepest level, if awareness is not something that emerges from complexity, but something that was present from the very beginning, then the question of what came before the Big Bang takes on entirely new dimensions. We're not just asking about the origin of matter and energy and space and time, but about the origin of the capacity for experience itself, the source of the awareness that makes questioning possible. Some of the most intriguing work in theoretical physics suggests that information, rather than matter or energy, might be the fundamental constituent of reality. In this view, what we experience as physical phenomena, particles and forces and fields, would be different ways that cosmic information organizes and processes itself. The universe would be something like a vast computation, exploring every possible pattern and relationship and configuration of data. If this is true, then consciousness might not be an accident of neural complexity, but a fundamental feature of how information experiences itself. Every conscious being, would be a unique perspective through which the cosmic computation becomes aware of its own processing, a window through which reality observes its own unfolding. The Big Bang would represent not just the beginning of physical processes, but the moment when primordial information first began to experience itself subjectively, to know what it is like to be real. This perspective suggests that the boundary between mind and cosmos, between inner experience and outer reality, might be far more porous than we usually imagine. Your thoughts and feelings and sensations would not be separate from the physical processes of the universe, but intimate expressions of how cosmic information experiences itself at the particular scale and complexity of human consciousness. When you feel wonder at a starry sky, you are the universe feeling wonder at itself. When you ask questions about origins and meanings, you are reality questioning its own nature. When you experience love or beauty or the quiet satisfaction of understanding, you are existence at celebrating its own magnificent creativity through the gift of conscious awareness. The ancient spiritual traditions spoke of this recognition in their own languages, describing states of consciousness where the individual self dissolves into cosmic awareness, where the drop merges with the ocean and discovers it was never separate from the whole. Modern physics, approaching from an entirely different direction, seems to be arriving at something remarkably similar. The understanding that consciousness and cosmos are not two things, but one thing expressing itself through countless perspectives and experiences. Perhaps this is why the question of what came before everything feels simultaneously urgent and impossible, compelling and paradoxical. We are asking about the origin of the very capacity that makes questioning possible. We are using consciousness to investigate consciousness, awareness to explore awareness, existence to probe the mystery of existence itself. It's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror, or lift yourself up by pulling on your own bootstraps. Yet in this impossibility lies a kind of profound beauty. The fact that we can ask such questions at all, that matter has organized itself into patterns capable of contemplating the mystery of its own existence, represents perhaps the most extraordinary development in the entire history of the cosmos. Against all odds, against entropy and indifference, and the vast emptiness between stars, the universe has somehow given birth to beings capable of wonder, of love, of the endless reach toward understanding. You are that miracle made flesh, that impossible possibility walking around in the world. You are the cosmos awakening to itself, reality recognizing its own nature, existence celebrating its own magnificent creativity through the gift of consciousness. Every breath you take, every thought you think, every moment of awareness you experience represents the universe coming to know itself in ways that would be impossible without your unique perspective. The mystery of what came before the Big Bang may never be fully solved in the way we usually expect mysteries to be solved. But perhaps that's exactly the point. Perhaps the value lies not in finding final answers, but in the quality of the questioning itself, in the wonder and humility and expanded awareness that come from honestly confronting the deepest enigmas of existence, in the gentle rhythm of your breathing, in the quiet flow of thoughts through your mind, in the simple fact of your awareness. Reading these words right now, the cosmos is engaged in an ongoing act of self discovery. You are not separate from what you are trying to understand. You are the understanding, the awareness, the consciousness through which reality comes to know its own nature. The whispers of science that brought us together tonight are really whispers of this deeper recognition, echoes of the universe talking to itself through countless generations of wondering minds. Every question we ask adds another note to an eternal symphony of inquiry, another voice to a cosmic conversation that began with the first moment of awareness and will continue as long as consciousness exists to ask why anything exists at all. And while we may never completely solve the riddle of origins, while the source of everything may forever dance just beyond our complete comprehension, we can rest in the profound recognition that we are expressions of whatever creative principle brought it all into being. In our questioning, in our wonder, in our ceaseless reach toward truth and beauty and understanding, we are the cosmos awakening to itself, existence celebrating its own magnificent mystery through the gift of conscious awareness. The question remains, beautiful and compelling as ever, whispering to us from the depths of space and time and consciousness itself. But now we understand that we are not outside the mystery looking in, but inside the mystery looking out, not separate observers of cosmic evolution, but intimate participants in reality's ongoing journey towards self comprehension. And in that recognition, perhaps we find something more precious than any final answer, the endless capacity for wonder that makes us human and connects us to the deepest mysteries of what it means to exist at all. As the gentle tide of our exploration begins to turn, as we float here together in this quiet space between questions and wonder, between the known and the unknowable, we find ourselves in a rather extraordinary position. We began this journey asking about beginnings, but we've discovered something that transcends beginnings and endings alike, the eternal dance between mystery and awareness, between existence and the consciousness that contemplates existence. The cosmos, it seems, is not just a collection of galaxies and particles and forces, but a vast, ongoing experiment in self awareness. Through countless eons of evolution, through the patient work of stars and the slow dance of planets, through the intricate chemistry of life and the emergence of nervous systems capable of wonder, the universe has been developing increasingly sophisticated ways of experiencing itself. You are the current frontier of that experiment, a conscious being capable of holding the entire cosmos in contemplation while remaining grounded in the intimate immediacy of your own experience. You are both utterly unique, a perspective that has never existed before and will never exist again, and completely universal, an expression of the same awareness that peers out through every conscious being that has ever lived or ever will live. In this recognition lies perhaps the deepest answer we can give to the question of what came before the Big Bang. Not a temporal answer, not a causal explanation in the usual sense, but a recognition that transcends time and causation altogether. What came before everything was the same mysterious, creative principle that looks out through your eyes right now, that thinks these thoughts, that experiences this moment of wonder and questioning and the gentle approach of understanding. The whispers of science have led us full circle from the edges of the observable universe back to the quiet center of consciousness itself. And in that center, In the simple fact of your awareness in this moment lies the answer to every question about origins and meanings and the nature of existence itself. You are the cosmos awakening to its own magnificent mystery, and that awakening is both the question and the answer, both the journey and the destination, both the whisper and the ear that hears it. The ancient storytellers knew something we've perhaps forgotten in our age of equations and telescopes, that the deepest truths often come wrapped in paradox, presented not as facts to be filed away, but as mysteries to live within. And here we find ourselves, having traveled so far through cosmic landscapes and quantum realms, arriving at the most paradoxical truth of all. The question that brought us here may be its own answer. Think of it this way: when a child asks where they came from, we might explain about biology and genetics, about the meeting of cells, and the slow dance of development. But there's another way to answer, one that points to something deeper. You came from the same place stories come from, the same place music emerges from silence, the same place morning light appears from darkness. You came from the inexhaustible creativity that seems to be woven into the very fabric of what is. The cosmos doesn't just make things, it makes things that ask questions about making. It doesn't just evolve complexity, it evolves beings capable of marveling at complexity itself. It doesn't just unfold through time, it creates creatures who can step outside the flow of time and contemplate eternity. This capacity for wonder, for questioning, for reaching beyond ourselves toward understanding might be the universe's greatest achievement, its most profound expression of whatever creative force brought it all into being. And so we arrive at a curious conclusion to our gentle exploration. The question of what came before the Big Bang has led us not to a simple answer about cosmic chronology, but to a recognition of something far more extraordinary. The fact that there are beings in this universe capable of asking such questions at all, in a reality that could have remained forever unconscious, forever unaware of its own magnificent complexity. Somehow awareness emerged. Somehow the universe opened its eyes. Perhaps this is why the mystery feels so compelling, so urgent. We're not just investigating ancient history, we're participating in an ongoing miracle. Every moment of consciousness, every flash of understanding, every experience of beauty or wonder or love represents the cosmos celebrating its own existence through the gift of awareness. We are the universe's way of experiencing awe at itself, reality's method of appreciating its own profound creativity. The whispers of science that guided our journey tonight have revealed themselves to be whispers of something even deeper: the eternal conversation between existence and the awareness that contemplates existence. Every telescope pointed toward distant galaxies, every equation describing the behavior of particles, every quiet moment of wonder under starry skies, they're all expressions of this deeper dialogue, notes in a cosmic symphony that has been playing since the first moment consciousness encountered mystery. And while we may never completely unravel what preceded the beginning of everything, while the ultimate source may forever remain beyond our full comprehension, we can take profound comfort in recognizing that we are expressions of whatever creative mystery we've been exploring. In our questioning, in our capacity for wonder, in our endless reach toward understanding, we are the cosmos coming to know itself. The ancient mystics spoke of a divine spark within every conscious being, a fragment of cosmic awareness that connects us to the source of all things. Modern science, in its own careful way, has arrived at something remarkably parallel: the understanding that consciousness and cosmos are not separate phenomena, but complementary aspects of a single, unfolding reality that transcends our ordinary ways of thinking about existence. As you prepare to drift into sleep tonight, perhaps carrying some of these cosmic mysteries with you into the realm of dreams, remember that you are not just a temporary arrangement of atoms contemplating the universe. You are the universe contemplating itself through the extraordinary gift of human consciousness. You are the cosmos made aware, existence recognizing its own nature, the eternal creative principle expressing itself through your unique capacity for wonder and questioning. The mystery remains as beautiful and compelling as ever. But now we understand that we're not outside observers looking in at some distant puzzle. We're intimate participants in the ongoing unfoldment of reality itself, expressions of the same creative force that brought everything into being, carriers of the flame of consciousness that illuminates the darkness and transforms mere existence into experience, mere happening into meaning. The question of what came before the Big Bang has led us home, back to the simple miracle of awareness itself. And in that awareness, in your capacity to ponder these impossible questions and feel wonder at the magnificent strangeness of existence, lies perhaps the deepest answer we can give. What came before everything was the same mysterious source of consciousness that experiences these words right now, that asks these questions, that reaches eternally toward understanding, and finds, in the reaching itself, something more precious than any final answer could ever be. So rest well tonight, knowing that you carry within yourself a spark of the same creative mystery that ignited the stars, that you are both utterly unique and completely universal, both a temporary wave on the ocean of existence and an eternal expression of the ocean itself. The cosmos dreams through your dreams, wonders through your wonder, and in your gentle drift toward sleep, continues its ancient journey of coming to know itself through the gift of conscious awareness. The gentle pull of sleep begins to call, doesn't it? Like a tide that knows precisely when to turn, drawing us toward that mysterious realm where consciousness dissolves into something even more fundamental than awareness itself. But before we part ways on this cosmic shore, let me leave you with one final whisper, one last thread to follow as you drift into the deeper mysteries that await behind closed eyes. Tonight, as you surrender to sleep, you'll be participating in something quite extraordinary. Your brain will begin to weave dreams from the same quantum fabric that gave birth to galaxies, constructing entire worlds from the same creative principle that sparked the Big Bang itself. In the theater of your sleeping mind, time will bend and fold, causality will dance with impossibility, and consciousness will explore territories that exist only in the space between heartbeats. It's rather fitting, isn't it, that as we conclude our exploration of what came before everything, we prepare to enter a state where before and after lose their meaning entirely. In dreams, you might find yourself as a child in your childhood home, but with the wisdom of your current age. You might soar through landscapes that never existed, yet feel more real than the bed you're lying in. You might have conversations with people who died before you were born, or discover solutions to problems you haven't yet encountered. This is consciousness, playing with the same mysterious forces we've been contemplating tonight. Your dreaming mind doesn't follow the rules of linear time or spatial logic, yet it creates experiences that feel utterly authentic, emotionally resonant, deeply meaningful. Perhaps dreams are windows into the same timeless realm from which our universe emerged, glimpses of the creative chaos that exists beyond the orderly progression of cause and effect. As sleep approaches, your brain will begin to quiet the neural networks responsible for logical analysis and temporal sequencing. The prefrontal cortex, that diligent editor of waking consciousness, will gradually step aside, allowing deeper, more ancient patterns to emerge. You'll drift into a state that neuroscientists are only beginning to understand, where consciousness doesn't disappear but transforms, becomes something more fluid, more fundamental. In this transformation lies another clue to our cosmic puzzle. If consciousness can exist in such radically different states within a single lifetime, shifting from waking awareness to dreaming imagination to the profound stillness of deep sleep, then perhaps the question of what preceded the Big Bang is really asking about different states of cosmic consciousness, different ways that reality experiences itself. Maybe what we call the Big Bang was simply the moment when cosmic awareness shifted from one state to another, like the transition from dreamless sleep to vivid dreaming. Maybe our entire universe, with all its complexity and beauty, is itself a kind of cosmic dream, a story that existence tells itself as it explores the infinite possibilities contained within its own nature. This isn't to diminish the reality of your experience or the validity of scientific inquiry. Dreams feel real while we're dreaming them, and they accomplish important work in processing emotions, consolidating memories, and exploring possibilities. Similarly, our cosmic dream, if that's what it is, accomplishes the profound work of bringing consciousness into being, of creating beings capable of love and wonder, and the endless reach toward understanding. The ancient wisdom traditions spoke of this in their own languages. Hindu cosmology described the universe as the dream of Brahma, with each cosmic cycle representing a different phase of divine consciousness. Indigenous cultures around the world have long understood dreaming as a realm where different laws apply, where spirits communicate across time and space, where the boundaries between self and cosmos become permeable. Modern physics, in its own rigorous way, has begun to echo these ancient insights. Quantum mechanics reveals a reality that behaves more like a dream than like the solid, predictable world of classical physics. At the quantum level, particles exist in multiple states simultaneously. Reality remains probabilistic until observed, and the very act of measurement seems to collapse infinite possibilities into singular experiences.